What a great day for East Carolina Pirate basketball, for ECU, the Pirate Nation. Joe Dooley is back as the head basketball coach of the Pirates. And Joe, everybody's so excited having you back here. Your thoughts, how do you feel about it?
We're glad to be back. I mean, it's exciting. I think we've got a lot of work to do, as you and I both know, but I think we're off to a good start.
Let's talk a little bit about the process. I mean, this thing kind of went back and forth there for about 3 weeks. You had some other conversations with some other programs. When did this thing get serious?
Well, I think once Dave Hart was in place, I think he wanted to evaluate a few things. He and Lee Workman reached out. They had some processes that they had to go through with obviously with the state. We were trying to finish up some things, obviously, at Florida Gulf Coast also. So I think in the last couple of days over the Final Four, it really started to progress. You
and I go back a long time to the early 90s when you came here as a young Joe Dooley with Eddie Payne, and then, of course, you walk into the press conference today. Joe, did you see some familiar faces?
It's great. A lot of familiar faces. I mean, I think one thing that ECU has is great loyal fans. I mean, you've got a fan base that wants the team to be successful. A lot of people that I recognize. It was great to see and get to talk to, and some guys you haven't seen in a while. Random people during the course of the time would always email or text. Obviously I talked to you, Jeff, and some other people, but it was nice to see people I played pickup basketball with back in 1995, which is sort of funny to see it. And a guy came up to me and started joking about it. I was there the day you tore your ACL.
Yeah,
so that was funny for you. It wasn't funny for me, but it was good.
So you're still hooping it up a little bit?
No, Jeff. After a second ACL, I got smart. You would think after one ACL I would retire. I wasn't smart enough, so I did the other one. Then after I did both of them, then that was it.
So now it's Max's ball, right?
Well, Max is excited. He's got his sneakers packed. He wants to get in the practice gym and start practicing.
Max is how old now?
Max is 14.
And he's a basketball player, is he?
He says he is. It's a work in progress. He can really shoot it, but I don't know if he can dribble by you or me right now, Jeff. So we'll have to work on that.
And your wife, Tanya, of course, we remember her well when she was here with you. And Tanya's an athlete too, isn't she?
No, Tanya, she's done a great job of keeping Max and I healthy, and she makes sure we try to eat healthy. It drives Max a little bit crazy when I take him out for dinner by myself. It's oh please, mom's too healthy. We need to go get something. So, but she's excited about getting back here, and obviously my parents are here, so it'll be great for them to spend time with their grandson.
Yeah, I talked with your mom and dad, and your mom said, "Well, I'm excited to have Joe back, but I'm really excited to have Max back." You've heard that
That's
too,
my
right?
life story. I'm always, but it'll be good for them to be able to spend some time with their grandchildren and grandchild. And Max, he loves that type of stuff. It's I think. As the grandchild, he always gets to pick where he gets to go eat and all those other things, so he'll have a good time.
We are in the beautiful Smith-Williams Center, the practice facility here at ECU that's still relatively new. And Joe, when you walked in here for your visit, I think you were blown away, weren't you?
The practice facility was nice from what I heard, and it was nicer when I came through, and that's usually not the case. I do think it's very practical. I mean, you got the practice facility where you can get in all the time. The facilities are fine. The offices are nice. It's something that you can use for recruiting. And that's obviously very important. I mean, I think the locker rooms and the film room and all those things are some things we can tweak, but I think the structures are great. I think there's just some little things that we'd like to add from a recruiting standpoint, and I think you've got a home run.
When you walked in Williams Arena, Minji's Coliseum, had it changed at all from what you remember?
Not really. I mean, but the floor is good. I mean, it's a home court advantage, and if you walk into some of the other great venues, they're not aesthetically the prettiest. I mean, you walk in, but it's more atmosphere. It's more of those type of things. And I think what you can do is when you get it full, you can have a great home court advantage. That's all you're looking for. I mean, I'd rather play in a place that didn't look aesthetically pretty, but was a hard place to play, than being one of those arenas where it's aesthetically pretty and you can't, there's no home court advantage. We've all seen those things too.
Absolutely. You know how tough this job is. You've had it before. You went through 4 years here. You were here with Eddie. Now it's even been ratcheted up another notch or two because it's in the American Athletic Conference, one of the best conferences, as we all know, in the country. This is a tough job. I told people this is a tough job. It requires a tough guy as a head coach, and Joe Dooley is a tough guy. I wanted to ask you a little bit about that motivation, Joe, that burning in your stomach, that fire. Where does that come from for you?
I think one of the big things is it's a multiple bid league, and I think that if you're afraid to compete, you're not going to be very good. And I think, one of the hard things is to attain success, but then it's harder to sustain it. And we've got to get it to the point where we're competitive first. We've got to get our guys to buy in that we're going to compete every night and every day in practice. And it sort of gets a little bit better. And it's going to be a process. How long, we don't know, but it's going to, it's already started. We'll get those guys on the floor, and losing's no fun. I don't know how anybody can think that's fun or competitive is not fun. The only thing that's fun is winning.
You've always been very competitive, haven't you?
Yes, probably too competitive at times, as my mother would say.
Yeah, I remember talking to a coach, and he told me he remembered you from your George Washington days. And he said, Joe Dooley was the kind of a player that if he was on your team, you loved him. If you had to compete against him, you hated him. So you've always brought that fire, haven't you?
It's no fun losing. And I think that, if you're going to do something, whether it's lifting like you like to do or running like I like to do, if you don't do it, if you can't get a little stronger, a little faster, you're not competitive.
Yeah, and that's what Joe's going to bring to the table. Have you had a chance to meet with the players yet?
Met with them last night, and I'll meet with them again here soon, and trying to get a few messages across very quickly, and hopefully they'll pick them up.
Joe, how about your staff?
We'll work on that. I've got some really good interest. One of the gentlemen that worked with me at FGCU got the job at FGCU, which is good. I mean, that's a good thing. Guys get to promote themselves, and I think we've had more interest than from some guys that I'm very excited about. So hopefully we can get that wrapped up next week or so.
That sounds good. And then I know you're going to hit the road, right?
We've got to get some guys and finish up this year's recruiting, make sure that the recruits we've signed are still on board, and then get to work on the next recruiting class, which is an important one.
Have you had a chance to look at any tape from last year's team?
Watched some on Synergy. Some good spurts, some bad spurts, as you know. I think it's hard on the kids in some regards when there's uncertainty. I mean, when you don't know what's going on, that's probably not a real good feeling. Same thing for the recruits, and you're always wondering. And it's also hard on the staff. I can't imagine when there's uncertainty of what you're going to be doing that's a real good feeling for you or your family. So, we'll try to regroup and get these guys going as soon as possible.
Joe has been blessed to be around a lot of great coaches throughout his career. Eddie Payne, of course, who was here at ECU, back to Eddie Fogler days at South Carolina, and then, of course, with Bill Self and so many other great coaches. What have you taken, Joe, from some of those guys?
I think one of the biggest things was, Coach Payne, he had such great patience. Eddie was very analytical, as you know, analytical about things. And, it's funny because now, having coached against him when he was at Upstate, he was much more impatient and everything else later. I mean, he was on the referees the whole time. When I worked with him, he would never yell at the referees. Now he's yelling at the referees the entire time. And I worked for Fran Frischello, who was a great organizational person, and Steve McLean at Wyoming was a terrific offensive coach. And then, fortunate enough to sit next to a Hall of Famer for 10 years. And his calm. I mean, Bill's about as competitive as you get too, but he's always got that look like he's not, like everything's under control, but you know how competitive he is, and just try to. One thing with him is he's always trying how to figure out different problems and how to solve it, and it was a great experience with all those guys.
Has been 19 years since Joe was here as the head coach. So talk about your evolution. Talk a little bit about how you've matured as a head coach since you were here the last time.
Well, I think we all get better. I mean, if you try, and the game is changing. So if you're not changing, I mean, you see so much more of mismatches and small ball and. The three-point shot, I mean, shoot, even 10 years ago, it started to evolve in the NBA. Now all of a sudden college games, and you watch NBA just based upon analytics, it's either a layup, a free throw, or a three-point shot. And there's no mid-range game, and now it's figuring out different ways to force rotations. Defensively, it's hard because now you have to chase guys. You used to stop and hopefully shoot a contested jump shot. Now you're trying to force guys off the line and make them take two-point shots. So definitely, study the game like you always have and try to get better, and I think we'll be able to tweak a few things.
It's always great to have a 6'10", 6'11" guy who can really play, but in today's game, it's maybe not quite as important as it used to be. It's
always good to have them still, just in case the other team has one. A lot of it's just about matchups, and the crazy thing is, you'll play 4 or 5 games where you can't play a big guy, and then all of a sudden, they've got a 6'10" guy, and how are we going to guard him? But you look around, especially because of the NBA with Golden State and now Houston, the way they've played with 4 guards and 5, all 5 guys can shoot the ball. And you look in college at Villanova, the other night they were posting their point guard and their 5-man was shooting threes. I mean, so now you're saying, well, how do you guard that? Well, there's a reason they're national champ. Plus, they're good players. So, I think those are all factors.
So, Joe, what kind of a style do you want to bring to ECU?
We want to be aggressive. I mean, I think a lot of it will be dictated on our personnel when we get out there. But I do think trying to set the tone of we're not backing up. We're going to be aggressive. We're playing downhill on offensively, and defensively we're going to be very aggressive.
Being in this league, the AAC, as we all know, one of the most competitive leagues in the country, one of the best basketball leagues in the country. That's the upside as far as competition is concerned, Joe. But did that attract you to this job, playing this kind of competition?
I think a couple of things. Multiple bid league. I do think that you've got, when you look at the top of the league last year with Cincinnati, Wichita State, and Houston. Now, perennially, UConn and Memphis have been very good. So they'll come back. UConn will be back. Daniel will get those guys back. Memphis with Penny there. You know, Temple didn't have a great year, but you still look at their RPI and where they were and some of the wins they had. It's a really good league. Now you got to get to the top half of the league to get in the NCAA tournament. That's going to be our fight. And Central Florida would have been good if Taco didn't get hurt and Johnny's son didn't get hurt, Aubrey didn't get hurt. I mean, they'll be good.
Yeah, no question about that. And of course, recruiting is the lifeblood, as we always say, of college athletics. Joe's been such a great recruiter down through the years, and you're going to have to probably upgrade your recruiting here with this program, aren't you?
I think we've got to obviously hit the local kids first. We'll start there and in the state especially, and then we'll move around from there based on relationships and things that we need to do, and then position. I mean, sometimes you say, well, let's recruit all local kids. Well, if there's no local big guys, we got to go somewhere else, and you know, that becomes a recruiting battle. But I do think we've got to get a little bit bigger. We've got to get a little bit more athletic along the wing, and you know, obviously, always good guard play helps a lot, and I don't care what level you're at. So we'll be out nosing around here soon.
Wanted to ask Joe about AAU basketball and how that has really changed recruiting down through the years, Joe. How much different is it now to recruit than it was maybe the first time you were here 20 years ago?
Not much. I mean, I think, you know, I think one thing North Carolina has is very good AAU programs. You know, Dwayne West and Ty White and the guys here, Jeff McGinnis over in Charlotte, all those guys have done really good jobs with AAU programs. I mean, there's a million other ones, but they've done good jobs. I think there's a lot of good players. When you look at the state of North Carolina, how many players come out of here that get Division I scholarships, that being said, you're not going to get every one of them. But if you can go 2 for 5, you know, that's because in basketball, if you can get a level or above player at one position, it really makes a difference. And if we can get a couple kids from the state and then move geographically into the, you know, into Richmond, into the Norfolk area, and you know, down to South Carolina, and obviously relationship recruit, we'll find some guys.
Well, you had some really good guys when you were here in the 90s. Have you heard from some of those ex-Pirates since you've taken this job?
Well, obviously Othello Meadows and Tony Parham and Quincy Hall and some of those guys, and I'm at about 290 texts I haven't returned, so I'm gonna, when I get back, I'll try to see some. But it was exciting, but not just the players here. It's exciting, you know, for players that I've coached. JoJo English, who I coached at South Carolina, text me, "Good to have you back in the area." And the guys at Kansas and you know, our players at FGCU were happy. You know, the former players, and that's sort of cool when you see those things where players that, you know, they sort of follow your career. It's pretty cool.
Joe, welcome back. It's great to have you here as a head coach, and we go back a long way back to the early 90s. Can't wait to work with you again in basketball season, and we wish you the best and welcome you here with open arms.
I'm looking forward to it.
That's Joe Dooley. He's the new head basketball coach at ECU.